Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be going over my stats from 2023. I noticed quite a few people like to do these videos and they seem to be pretty popular. So I was like, okay, like I track my reading. I have a spreadsheet that I use. So I figure let's share some stats, see how I did. And while I didn't do like a 2023 like start of the year stats, I figured I'll just tell you guys where I ended up. And then going forward for 2024, I figured at the end of the year I can then come back and look and see again, and everybody can see how much my numbers constantly fluctuate because they do a lot of fluctuating. So this video might seem a bit chaotic because I did not plan it out. I have everything written down here. I've got my laptop here, technically my sister's laptop. I've got a laptop here that's got my spreadsheets open, and I'm going to tell you guys now, I don't math. That's why I have a spreadsheet, okay? But there was a number in here where I had to do the math for it. So if I'm wrong, I warned you. I don't math. So with that said, let's just jump into this and let's see what my stats were like, and let's see how I did, I guess. I don't know. Let's just look at some numbers, I guess. You guys like numbers. People are weird. I don't like numbers. So I started the year 2023 out with 62.4% TBR. So, and of my collection, I had 37.6% read. And my goal was to get to at least 50%. Now that did not happen because I started exploring romance, so I ended up reading a lot from Kindle Unlimited. So when I ended the year, I ended the year with a 68.3% TBR and a 31.1% read. So my numbers went down. They went backwards. And that is because I was not reading what I owned, but I was still acquiring books. So I actually worked against myself, as we can see. Not very good. As for like the age group that I read 157 adult books, because let me tell you the total first. I read a total of 163 books. That would probably be helpful. I told you guys this video is going to be chaotic. So I read 157 adult books, 5 young adult books, and only 12 middle grade books. And that actually makes me really sad because I love middle grade and I always try to read a good chunk. Like, do you guys see? Like this, and this, that's all middle grade, and I haven't read all of it yet, and I wanted to get through a chunk of it last year. That didn't happen. And I think these 12 were honestly from the library. I don't even think they were ones I owned. So let's talk about how many I read based on the year. So as for new books that were released in 2023, I actually read 38 of them, which is kind of surprising. I did not think I read that many that were released in 2023, and I think it's probably because they were all Kindle Unlimited, because I don't really remember picking up any of my books from 2023 that I bought. I read 125 backlist books, so that's everything that was published prior to 2023, which makes a lot more sense. And within those numbers, I also read 22 arcs, and 4 of my books were rereads. I don't reread too often, and 2 of those rereads were Kresley Cole, and the other 2 were Neil Gaiman, because I reread the Graveyard Book every year. That is the one reread I will do every year. So now let's break it down by the genres. I read 1 classic, 45 fantasy, 3 graphic novels, 1 historical fiction, 8 horror, 1 literary fiction, 13 mangas, 8 mysteries, 85 romances, and 9 sci-fi. This is a first for me. This is an absolute first for me. Normally, fantasy is the one that takes the lead. As you can see, it came in second at 45 books. But romance taking the lead at 85. And I can tell you right now, 60 of those is one author. That would be Ruby Dixon, because I went through her entire Not Hoth series, all the Ice Planet Barbarians and the spinoffs, and yeah. So as the source of whether I owned it or if I got it from Kindle Unlimited or the library, let's break those numbers down. I read 68 of my own books, which again, that's kind of shocking because I did not think I actually read that many of my own books that I own. But that's at least 68 books dent in the massive collection. 22 arcs, like I said earlier, 58 KU books, and that is because I actually owned a few of the Ruby Dixons prior to going through Kindle Unlimited to read the entire series. Yeah, I did own a couple of them. And then I got 20 books from the library. So those numbers should add up to 163. I'm going to tell you guys that right now. Those numbers should add up. Like I said, I have a spreadsheet do all this. So if the numbers don't number, it's not my fault. My average rating for the year was about a 3.3, which is definitely believable because a lot of the romances I picked up after Ruby Dixon, they were all 1s or DNFs. So yeah, it was an interesting year in my exploration into romance, which if any of you are interested, I will be having a video coming up soon where I talk about my journey through reading romance. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested. So the most books that I read in 1 month actually goes to April, where I read 31 books. That was a Ruby month, guys. That was a Ruby month. And the least amount that I read in a month was August, where I only read 5. And I honestly thought December would have been the lowest, but apparently I read more in December than I did August. So I don't know what happened in August. I did not pick up books. Now, those are all the stats that I pulled from my spreadsheet for the year of 2023. Now, around probably late October, early November, I got the idea that I wanted to set up a new spreadsheet where I wanted to separate my owned collection outside of my reading stats for the year, because it would allow me to stay on top of it. I could update it whenever I wanted without having to worry about messing with the stats for the year reads and such. So I actually now have a spreadsheet specifically to catalog my collection. And so while I was in the process of doing that, I stopped updating the owned book list on my reader spreadsheet. So remember at the beginning of the video when I said my owned read versus TBR, the numbers are going to be different. It's because they are. Because I stopped updating that old spreadsheet, and I now update just the one that is specifically for my owned books, whether they're physical, digital, or ARCs. I have them all on this list. I also, during that time frame, unhauled about 112 books because I took the time to go through my Kindle, and I ended up unhauling a lot of free books that I picked up over the years. There was actually a lot of lit RPGs that I got rid of because I realized I do not like the style of lit RPG. The stories sound interesting, but the execution is always like, stop breaking down stats, I don't care. So I have not managed to find a lit RPG that I liked, so I actually ended up deleting quite a bit that I did not realize were lit RPGs when I initially picked them up. So yeah, altogether I unhauled roughly around 112 books from my collection, a majority of them being from my digital collection. So my new stats going into 2024, this is a slight bit updated because I have read 2 books from my collection. But I am starting out at a read percentage of 30.3% and an unread of 69.7%. So that means in my collection, I have read 408 books and I have unread 937 books because I have a grand total of 1,345 books. I own 1,345 books. Now, just to help you guys out a little bit, 860 of those are physical books. 860 of those books are physical, whereas 427 of them are digital. And that was with me going through and getting rid of 112. And then there is 58 arcs that I still have left to read from last year and the previous year. Because yes, I'm behind. So I also decided that this would be the perfect time to set up a special tracker for my series. So I could actually see how many series I'm like in the middle of. Now, mine is slightly misskewed just a little bit because I just listed every single series that I own, because at some point I will start it and be in the middle of it. So in my collection, I have 105 series. Out of those, I'm not actually sure how many I have currently ongoing because I haven't figured out how to get my spreadsheet to separate the two. So without having making 2 separate spreadsheets. So we're just going to go with ongoing 105 series. And out of those 105, well, actually, hold on. Like I'm not a numbers person. So let me see. I'm trying to figure out how to rephrase all of this. So I have 105 ongoing, but I've finished 10 series. So I would say that would be the 10 plus the 105, and that would tell you how many series I actually like own in general. You guys can do the math for that yourself. And then I've actually DNF'd 1 series that I do own, and I actually believe I've already gotten rid of it. So yeah, we're roughly starting around 105. I might end up, like I said, I'm going to keep playing with that particular spreadsheet so I can figure out how to separate the ones that I actually have started versus the ones I have not started, because I have not started every single one of these, obviously. And I would like a more accurate count. So, but right now, at the moment, I have 105 series that I have to either start or finish. So, let's go back to the data around the physical collection and then the digital collection. So, in the physical collection, I currently have 505 unread books, and I've read 355, thusly equaling 860 books. So that puts me in my physical collection at 58.7% unread and 41.3% read, which isn't too bad considering my goal is to get to 50%. And I separate these because I tend to focus more on my physicals than my digitals, because let's look at the digital numbers. I have 87.6% unread and 12.4% read. So that means I have 374 unread digital books and 53 read. Can you guys tell I forget I own a Kindle? Can you tell I forget I own a Kindle? I also, like I said earlier, I have a really, really bad habit of picking up free books. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if eventually I end up doing another purge at some point and just realizing not interested, I try and do a purge roughly every 6 months. If not a little bit earlier than that, but I at least try for twice a year to go through my collection and purge, unless I'm like unhauling something after I've finished it because I DNF'd it, I gave it a low rating, I didn't like it, things like that. but for the most part, I will try and like go through the collection at least twice a year to see if I'm even interested in a lot of the things that I own. Now, I will say the one collection, because I count my mangas into my physical collection, but I can 100% inform you guys that I have read every single manga that I own. And I want to say I own maybe physically at least 60 or 70 of them. I would have to do like an actual like spreadsheet count for that because like I said, I count it with my physicals. But I'm actually proud of myself that I have read every single one of the mangas I own. So I'm at least on top of that, and it's because they're so easy to read, guys. So yeah, so altogether in my collection, I have a total of 937 books that have not been read. 937 books. Like that's wild. That's wild. So my goal is to eventually try and get the overall collection to at least, what are we at right now? What did I say? The overall collection is currently sitting at 30.3. So I think the goal would be to try and get that to 40. So another 10%. And then for my physicals, I would like that to actually reach 50. I'm sitting at 41.3 right now. So I do think that is achievable as long as I continue reading the books that I own this year. That's the goal. We're going to see if that happens. I'm not going to hold my breath, but that is the goal. And then for digital, since I'm sitting at 12.4%, I don't really, maybe 20, if we can get that up to 20%. Also, maybe, like I said, I might end up doing another purge on there again, just to see. I did, at the end of December, I picked up a bunch of free books from the Stuff Your Kindle Day romance thing, and I've read 2 of them so far, and I DNF'd them both. So, I might, a lot of them are like under 100 pages, so they're pretty easy to get through. So I'll either get through them or I'll just decide to just be like, I don't want it anymore. Because sometimes with those free Stuff Your Kindle Day events, I will just grab stuff and then afterwards go back through it and be like, yeah, I actually don't want this. But I grab it while it's free, while I have the time, because that makes sense in my head. So yeah, those are my stats. Also, going forward, I would like to try and track my reading in regards to gender of the author. It's not something I've ever really paid too much attention to, and I will be 100% honest, I thought I owned way more books by male authors than I did female authors, and I was pleasantly surprised when I went through and I created the new spreadsheet that physically I own 157 books by female authors and 179 by male authors, which isn't too bad. I own 11 by non-binary authors, and then there's a few within the collection where I don't have an author gender picked because I cannot find an answer to what the gender is of said author. So I just leave it empty as unknown because I'm not sure and I'm not going to make assumptions. Digitally, I also own 121 books by female authors and 150 by male authors. I do not have any marked as non-binary because, again, I'm not sure about some of the authors and their gender. There's also a few where I just left them blank, and there's also the possibility that I could currently have my information about any of these authors wrong, so that could end up changing. But right now, within my collection, I'm actually pleasantly happy with the scale between the two. It's not as drastic as I honestly thought, because I do lean more towards male authors. I do actually like a way a lot of them present storytelling. I do struggle a lot with female authors and how they present storytelling. So I honestly have always thought I had more books by male authors. So I was actually very pleasantly surprised with those numbers. But now I want to see, when I read, which one I do actually lean more heavily towards. I haven't decided to if I'm going to track the race or not. And that's just because there are some authors who are not like very open about what ethnicity or race that they fall under, and I'm not the kind of person who's going to go and like snoop all up in their personal business to find. If it's obvious, that's great. I might change my mind later on, or maybe at the end of the year do like a quick run through and see how many authors of diverse backgrounds I did read, because I do own a fair amount of books by diverse authors. My middle grade collection is actually very diverse. I've actually made it a goal and a point to buy as many middle grade books written by Filipino authors, because my daughter is half Filipino and I want her to know that if she ever wanted to write a book, she could be a published author. So I grab every book by a Filipino author that I can, that I am aware of. So, and my middle grade collection has quite a few of them. But I am curious to see if my diversity reading is really poor. And I'm not going to lie, I have a feeling it is. I do have a feeling it's pretty poor. But I haven't exactly figured out how I want to track that going into this year. So, but these are the main things. The main thing I track, though, is what I've read in my collection, what I haven't read in my collection yet, because that's what's important to me, because I want to feel like I'm not just collecting books just to collect books. So those are all of my numbers. I hope you guys enjoyed all of this. I know it was a hot mess there in the beginning, because like I said, I don't number. I don't math. I don't number. I like words. Okay. So I guess we'll see at the end of 2024 what my stats look like and go from there. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, because like I said, I noticed those stat videos do pretty well. So until next time, bye.